Hi, how are you? So it's been a couple of weeks. I had a couple of weeks off doing lives as I'd launched my Calm Your Monthly Moods 6 weeks program. So we're 4 weeks in. So actually maybe I've had longer off. I must have had about 3 weeks off then. And I was just busy helping the ladies, busy with the program. So I took a couple of weeks off. So now I am back. Talking today a very important topic of sugar reliance, sugar addiction, and actually what sugar does during your cycle. So it's very common for women to have sugar cravings at particular times in their cycles. So I think it's important for us to understand what these sugar cravings are and ultimately understand the impact the sugar is having on you. I think sometimes we think the concept of having sugar, oh, maybe it just causes a bit of weight gain, or I know it's not great for me, but I don't know what it does. But I think it's good to understand what it does, particularly to your hormones, because it can cause a cascade in these hormones fluctuating that can lead to polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, infertility, anxiety disorder. So I think it's important for us to understand what sugar does so that we can mitigate it and do things to support ourselves. Sugar's one of those things that once you get into the habit of eating it, it's really difficult to get out of the habit. It is really addictive. And sugar does a few things in your body. First of all, it initiates that insulin response. So basically, when we have sugar with any glucose, we're talking about glucose mainly here. So when we have that glucose, it goes into our body, and that glucose initiates the pancreas to secrete insulin. What the insulin does, it kind of buffers that glucose, so it keeps it at a certain level. Otherwise, it would just keep on rising and rising and rising in our blood and then cause all sorts of havoc. So it can cause an elevation in insulin. And what that can do over time, if we're getting that elevated insulin over time, you know, the insulin's getting higher and higher because we're constantly having glucose and glucose, that can cause what's called hyperinsulinemia. Now, hyperinsulinemia is the problem in our hormones, in our hormone cascade. It can cause many different problems with the way the hormones are cycled, the way they are metabolized, and just the way they present in our body. So people with hyperinsulinemia, women with hyperinsulinemia, are more likely to have testosterone dominant hormone issues. So they're more likely to have maybe acne, maybe hair growth on the face, maybe polycystic ovarian syndrome. So any issues with high testosterone, because what hyperinsulinemia does is it encourages our body's system to turn hormones such as progesterone into other hormones. It kind of upregulates those pathways. This is what insulin does. It upregulates these pathways. So it can cause us to be more insulin dominant, but testosterone dominant, but it can also do the same with estrogen. So it can cause more and more estrogen in the body. So the more sugar we eat, the more insulin we have, then the higher the insulin gets, and the more that our body will convert hormones to insulin. So we're looking at these kind of insulin dominant, testosterone dominant, low progesterone kind of hormonal pictures that are exacerbated by insulin. Another issue with glucose is obviously the energy. So it provides us with energy, and if we get used to burning this energy, we kind of have these ups and downs, and this means we'll be reliant on different kinds of foods and snacks for our energy levels through the day. One other thing it does, and this is particularly important in those times in your cycle when you get anxious or when you get moody or when you get depressed, is glucose excites the brain. It excites the brain. It releases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. So it releases dopamine, and it starts to release more and more dopamine. So if you have any issues with dopamine receptors in your body, or you've ever been diagnosed with ADHD, sugar will exacerbate these conditions, particularly in your luteal phase of your cycle. So it can be very difficult there, and you'll crave it more and you'll need it more. Another thing that it does when it excites the brain is it suppresses a neurotransmitter called GABA. Now, GABA is extremely calming. We need GABA. And what tends to happen in the luteal phase of our cycle is GABA levels decrease. And so the more sugar we eat, the more insulin we get, but the more anxious and agitated we get, because GABA is low, our brain is being excited, and we just have that, kind of picture of anxiety and agitation. This is one of the reasons that sugar is very, very bad for autoimmune conditions. So it can exacerbate, if you've got an autoimmune condition, you'll find sugar will not only exacerbate the physical symptoms, it will exacerbate those mental, emotional symptoms. And insomnia and anxiety are two things that sugar in your diet can cause, particularly in those sensitive times in your cycle when the hormones are kind of fluctuating in the luteal phase, but that's between ovulation and your period. So in terms of being reliant, understanding how sugar is processed in your body and understanding how you personally process sugar. I'm not very good with sugar, so for me, if I have something sweet, even just fruit, my body's blood sugars, I tend to actually drop and I get hungry. So I need to be very careful. I need to really rely on savory foods and have my fruit when I'm not hungry. Waking at 2 a.m. is a massive sign that you've got issues with your blood sugar balance. Never being satisfied after a meal, eating a meal and just thinking I need something else. I need a sweet treat, or I need a piece of fruit. Whenever you've eaten a meal, if you get that feeling after a main meal, you need to go cold turkey after a main meal and not have anything. You need to get your body used to just having that one meal. Fungal infections are a biggie. So sugar feeds fungus. So if you find you get really itchy at certain periods of time, you have sugar, you get itchy, or you get thrush, or you get dandruff, or you get itchy eyes, or you get a coating on your tongue, that's a huge sign that the sugar is feeding that. And particularly I found, I've had clients that say they eat an orange and they get itchy. So look out for those signs. If you know you've got a hormone condition such as polycystic ovarian syndrome, then you need to understand that sugar really drives that syndrome. Sugar can cause issues with the testosterone and the androgens, and that can exacerbate the polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so sugar you really need to be careful with. If you know you've got elevated testosterone, or you've got elevated cortisol, you need to be careful with sugar as well, because sugar will raise those. And then of course we've got weight gain, types of weight gain. So with sugar it's more that kind of weight gain on the tummy. And then we look at the mood swings. So the mood swings, you can go up and down. So the mood swings when it comes to sugar fluctuation, they're an interesting mood swing. So when we're in our luteal phase, we're more likely to have fluctuating blood sugars. If we allow our blood sugar to fluctuate, or we rely on eating sugar to stabilize it, because it only stabilizes it for a short period of time, you'll have a mood swing that's really it's like a toddler mood swing. And this is an interesting thing with kids. A lot of kids, they just have their blood sugars out, and so by balancing the blood sugars, you'll notice their moods will stabilize. But it's that kind of toddler mood swing. So it's the mood swing where you suddenly get angry. You feel the anger rising, but it's kind of can go as quick as it comes. It's not an unhappy anger that will last for hours. It's this real rising for no reason. You might get agitated with somebody, you might get moody with something might irritate you, and it's like a sudden burst. It's like a toddler burst, like a mood swing from a toddler, tantrum. That's the telltale sign of the blood sugar fluctuation mood swings. So it's that kind of tantrum mood swing. Something you would never normally have a tantrum or get moody about. So that's what it looks like. That's what look out for, So if you're going through your luteal phase and you have kind of that, and then you can come down, you can be brought down quickly, and then you realize, actually it's not really bothering me that much. That's a telltale sign. So you need to be aware of that, and that's when you need to check in and monitor your symptoms, like check into how you're feeling, and if you are getting those angry mood swings, that's most likely what it is. So just keeping your blood sugar steady through that phase in your cycle is really, really important. Issues with reliance. Now, these are the mental emotional issues. So this is more to do with neurotransmitters. Do you have low serotonin? And this is leading to sugar cravings. So it's less of the blood sugar, less of the insulin, more of the neurotransmitters. So if your serotonin is low and you're relying on the sugars, you're more likely to be needing the sugar anytime during the day. You're more likely to be a little bit more sneaky about it. So you might hide it. This is when it's to do with serotonin. So you might have a secret stash. You might go to the shops and buy something and eat it in the car. So you're not sharing something with your family. You're not out with a friend sharing something for afternoon tea. It's more that eating it by yourself and doing it in a way that you wouldn't feel comfortable eating it with other people. That's a telltale sign of the neurotransmitter, particularly serotonin. So if your serotonin is dropping out, which it can do, particularly during the luteal phase, for some women during that period, you need to track to understand when it's dropping out, if it's dropping out for you. You can get the sadness, you can get the anxiety, you can get the ruminating thoughts, but you'll also get those sugar cravings. But remember, the sugar cravings are more all day, and it's more something you'll feel sneaky about. You're not sharing it with other people. So that's the telltale sign of low serotonin. And also, you feel when you eat it, it's not that you're getting energy from it. When you eat it, you're getting a release. You're feeling happier. So if you're eating something sweet and you're feeling happier, or you're eating something sweet and you're just feeling that release and you're eating it alone, that's the low serotonin. So that's when you need to do more things to it. So it's not so much supporting your blood sugar levels, that's supporting you mentally and emotionally and supporting your serotonin, which I've been talking about a lot these last couple of months, supporting serotonin through breathing, through visualizations and affirmations, through cold showers, through socializing, through supplements such as SAMe, tryptophan, fish, foods with tryptophan in. So just using these foods. So if you find this is your issue, then just go down that route rather than the blood sugar route first and see how you feel. If you feel it's more a gut issue or more a candida issue, and this will come, say, for example, you might crave sugar straight after a main meal. So if you're eating savoury and you finish that main meal and you crave sugar, sometimes that can indicate candida. Also, candida will be worse ovulation onwards. So you won't have so much candida, say, in your follicular phase, which is around your period. But if you get intense cravings, any vaginal discharge, dandruff, white coating on the tongue, fogginess, that might indicate candida. So look out for that sign as well. After a meal, check in with that meal. Check in and see if that meal is right for you. Some people do amazingly on low carb diets. Some people need a little bit of carbohydrate. Some people need higher fat, lower fat, protein. So check in with your meal. Like if you find you eat pasta dish and you crave sugar, then that indicates that what's happened is you've had too much starch in that meal, so you need less starch. So play around with your macronutrients, play around with what meal suits you so that you're not craving sweets after a meal. If you're normally craving between that kind of mid-morning and mid-afternoon, so you're craving sugar, say, just these two particular times, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, you kind of crave, that's normally, what that normally means is you've gone too long without eating and the meal you had before didn't work. So what's a real typical way that someone can crave, I find, is in the office, you have your lunch at about 12:30. Maybe you've brought your lunch and it's a salad. Maybe the salad's got a little bit of tuna in. So you've got this salad. It's a little square Tupperware box like this and it's got some tuna. And you have that at 12:30. And then come 3 o'clock, you're exhausted, so you want a coffee. and you also want a sweet treat. That is obvious. We can see what's happened. You know, you've had that meal, has not been enough to sustain you. So what's happening is your blood sugar levels are dropping. So you need to make sure either the meal that you had has enough energy to sustain you. So that salad, you know, if you're having the tuna, add some avocado, add some nuts and seeds, add some olive oil. And if you need starch and you need carbohydrates, you could add a little bit of roast sweet potato, or you could add some legumes or some quinoa or something like that. So you've got a meal that will sustain you. But if you just have, say, a salad with a bit of protein, and there's no fat or there's no carbs, for some people, that means that their blood sugar can drop, you know, a few hours later. Another thing you can do is have your designated snack times. So say you have lunch at 12, you might decide to have a small snack at 2 o'clock. The worst thing you can do is wait until this craving comes on and this energy slump and have a coffee and something sweet. That's the worst thing you can do. And also the worst thing you can do is have a sweet snack when you feel your blood levels have dropped, and that even includes fruit. Always go savory when your blood sugar levels drop, because if you have fruit, you're just buffering that glucose a little bit, and then you'll find by 5 o'clock on the way home from work, you're even more exhausted. So check in with your sugar cravings, and at the same time check in with your exhaustion. If you're getting a sugar craving plus that kind of, oh, I don't care what I eat, I can't think, I can't do anything, you know, that all the energy is kind of drained from you, that normally means you need to manage your meals a little bit more and eat a little bit more effectively for your body type, because we are all different. If it's more on waking, you wake up and you're like, oh, today I just want to have toast with marmalade or toast with honey. If you wake up and you feel like that, there's a couple of things going on. If we have a bad night's sleep, that will put our blood glucose levels out as well. So check in with how you slept. Did you sleep really well? Maybe you're dehydrated, so have a big glass of water first. Also, what did you eat the night before? Did you just have a pasta meal? Sometimes if you just have carbohydrates, you might wake up craving sweets, or maybe you just didn't eat much, you had a really light meal, so your blood sugar levels have dropped. But if you're craving sugars in the morning, your blood sugar levels are dropped either because you had a bad night's sleep or because your meal the night before wasn't kind of being managed. So you just need to be aware of that. First thing you need to do is have a big glass of water. And secondly, if you feel like your blood sugar's dropped and you're craving sweets, you always, when you're craving sweets, is you have something savory. So you have a savory meal. You don't have that sweet just yet, because it will put you into that seesaw. So, you know, those are the things that can cause the sugar cravings, and in terms of the impacts on your hormones. The hyperinsulinemia is one of the biggest impacts on your hormones. So that can cause testosterone dominance, that can cause estrogen dominance. But another thing that it can do for you ladies with PMDD is it can cause that progesterone to funnel too quickly into allopregnanolone. So during the luteal phase, you get progesterone depletion, higher allopregnanolone, which leads to depression, severe fatigue, and those really severe PMDD symptoms, suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, self-harm thoughts. So it's really important to keep that insulin really nice and level. Then another thing sugar does during your cycle, what it can exacerbate, is it depletes your GABA, it excites the brain, and it releases more dopamine. So it just leaves you anxious, needing more, and also it can leave your body in pain, particularly if you're depleting the GABA. And if you've got any autoimmune condition, you can have a lot of flare-ups and a lot of pain. So this is why it is important. You know, it's not just for conceptual reasons because sugar is bad. It does specific things to your body. So if you're suffering through your cycle, if your luteal phase is really bad, if you have bad PMS, bad PMDD, endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome, or you're trying to conceive, it really is in your best interest to reduce the sugars. And depending on how much you're eating, you may want to go cold turkey, you may want to whittle it down. So if you're having like a chocolate bar every day, you might want to swap that out for a piece of fruit first and kind of whittle it down that way. Remember, sugar withdrawal is a thing. So this is the thing, if you're having a lot of sugar a day, For example, what's a lot of sugar? I mean, say you're eating a chocolate bar a day. I know what, I've had a client recently, she has 3 Oreos a day. 3 Oreos a day is still a lot. I think that's a lot of sugar. That's a lot of refined sugar. When you cut that out, you will have less dopamine. When you have less dopamine, that means your pain perception is heightened. Look at when we take, when drug users have to go off drugs, or when you would go off things that release that dopamine, the pain perception is there. So you will find headaches, pain, or neck aches. You'll just find you'll be a bit uncomfortable. So you do have to kind of sit with that and just be aware of that's something that will happen. Low moods is a big thing that will happen as well. You might find you get a little bit depressed for a couple of days, particularly if you have a lot of sugar. You may find the cravings increase. They become really just, your body wants to get that dopamine hit. So it will really try and entice you to have that sugar. Fatigue, flu-like symptoms as well. That's a big one. Flu-like symptoms when you withdraw from sugar. Insomnia and cramps as well, like muscle twitches and cramps. So what did I want to say about that in terms of withdrawing? I mean, just doing it slowly if you're on a high sugar diet, and just being aware that these symptoms can manifest and they can be quite bad for a few days. You're generally looking about 3 days, but if you've had a lot of sugar before, if you're having lots, if you're having lots of sweets and sugars through the day, that withdrawal period can last a lot longer. So you may want to do it slowly, and so you switch out these refined sugars for honey, fruits, date sugar, those kind of sugars. So you do that first, then you start to switch it out for the other things. You start to then reduce it more, if that makes sense. One thing to be aware of is this argument in your brain. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have this argument in your brain where your prefrontal cortex is trying to converse with your reptilian part of the brain. That doesn't work. So basically what that is you're in your prefrontal cortex, you decided, right, I'm not going to have sugar because I know it makes me anxious and I can't sleep. It's not good for me and I'm always getting sick, so I'm going to give sugar up. And so you know it. You're like, that's what I'm going to do. This is a smart thing to do. Then it comes to, you've given it up, and then you're in the supermarket and you're going down the chocolate aisle and you see something. Now what will happen is your reptilian part of the brain will pipe up. Your reptilian part of the brain doesn't like change. It's a survival part of your brain. It's the oldest part of the brain. It's the strongest part of the brain, and this is why it's hard for us to break habits. That part of the brain will pipe up and go, oh, come on, why don't you get the 50% lint with the mint? Just have 1 square. I'll just get that, just have 1 square. It's on special, I'll just have 1 square. The reptilian part of the brain's doing that. Then your prefrontal cortex says, no, I said I wouldn't. And so what happens is this internal dialogue and this argument between the reptilian part and the prefrontal cortex, and they start fighting. That's the most exhausting thing that you can do. So really, it's about making a decision. And the decision is, do you eat sugar and chocolates or do you not? And it's the same as alcohol, it's the same as smoking. So I'm not a smoker. So every time I go into a garage or a shop that sells cigarette, I'm not arguing with myself. I'm not going, oh, I may as well buy a packet today. Shall I buy a packet today? Well, no, I don't smoke. No, but so you have to really, in your mindset, you have to make that decision. Once you make that decision, that starts to suppress the reptilian brain a little bit more. But don't give in to the decision you've made. So if the decision you've made is, I'm not going to eat refined sugar, but I might have a treat on Sunday. Or I'm not going to eat refined sugar, but I'm going to eat fruit. Or you might say, I'm just going to eat the dark lint and I'm going to have 2 squares a day. You have to be really specific about the decision that you make and make sure it's realistic for you, and then stick to it. Because the argument in the brain is just going to cause more inflammation and more stress. I hope that helps. And it helps to just think of it like that. So in terms of supporting yourself, you need to have a really good diet plan. in terms of a nice diet plan to support your blood sugar. You can add in magnesium. Magnesium is fantastic to support blood sugar. Always eat savory if you're craving sweet and you're hungry or you're hangry. Never go to the supermarkets when you're hungry. Keep hydrated, because sometimes we crave sugars because we're dehydrated. And figure out other ways to support your serotonin and your dopamine. Exercise, visualizations, affirmations, cold showers, some kind of sport. So figure out a couple of things that work for you and stick to those. Try not to use your diet. So I hope that was helpful for you today. If it sounds like, if you're wanting to try to break your sugar cycle, I've got a sugar bundle that's going on special tomorrow for the weekend for Black Friday. So, are we Thursday? Yeah. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days. It will be on special. I'll pop the link up here, and it's $39, and you get my sugar reset weekly meal plan. You get my sugar tips. You get an interview with a sugar expert. You get a workshop that I did with Brenda Yanchik, Curb Your Cravings interview, and you also get the 28-day breakthrough cleanse, which is valued at $177. So this is all for $39. So it's a really good special deal. It's going to be over the next 4 days. So I will pop the link up for you. And if you've got any questions, please pop them below. Hope that was helpful, and have a fantastic day. Enjoy the rest of your day, ladies. Bye.